funding was generous, and the exaggeration was immense. It was a storm, paid for in full, fueled by broken pens and faces following orders. Consciences were sold in dark rooms. They bought their downfall plunging into the depths of systematic lies and deception, where truths are assassinated and realities falsified. And the target was one specific individual, none other than Lieutenant General Saddam Haftar, aiming to tarnish his image, undermine his achievements, and obstruct his progress both on the battlefield and within the political and diplomatic arenas, where he has recently captured the spotlight. It was an extremely difficult week, during which the Fifth Column allied itself with external voices, launching a blatant media war carried out by local and international press, deliberately targeting the General Command and the most prominent figure of the Libyan National Army. Everyone believed CNN's claims, which CNN itself later denied. Then the Wall Street Journal exposed their falsehood, and Middle East Eye revealed who truly stood behind them. It sparked the attack. But the story began 48 hours before CNN's lie, when we observed the name of the rising general dominating social media platforms in Libya, with over 18,000 posts on Facebook alone. A series of paid, fake accounts and pages launched attacks against General Saddam, with no clear reason. The campaign's intentions emerged. CNN broadcast its fabricated report, falsely claiming that the commander of the Libyan ground forces had signed an official agreement with the administration of President Trump to receive illegal migrants on Libyan soil. That came following a meeting between the general and President Trump's senior advisor for the Middle East and Africa, Massad Boulos. After that meeting, Libya found itself facing one of the fiercest media and cyber attacks, aimed at shaking public confidence in the man seen as the figure of this critical phase in Libya's future.
إذا كان الجيش الليبي يعذب ويهين نائب برلماني بهذه الطريقة
وتوجه أصابع الاتهام واضحة لآمر قوات الكرامة ونجله صدام،
وإن كان هو في الأساس هو مؤيد لميليشيات حفتر،
فهو هذا طبعا يدمر رواية الأمن والأمان اللي طالما يتغنوا بها.
لكن أن يكون صدام قد طلب تصوير هذا الفيديو للدرسي وهو في هذا المشهد الدليل، نعم هذا مؤكد.
رفع قضية جديدة أمام المحكمة الفيدرالية بواشنطن ضد المشير الليبي خليفة حفتر،
وهو يناشد صدام حفتر نجل قائد القيادة العامة خليفة حفتر،
مستغيثا بقائد الجيش خليفة حفتر ونجله صدام.
من الذي قتلهم صدام؟
ابن خليفة حفتر صدام.
You must have heard a lot of these voices. Over the past few days, I witnessed thousands of posts, news articles, pages and websites, all attacking the General Command and targeting the rising general in particular. Some of them, no doubt, provoked you, while others, perhaps, left you uneasy. But why? Let's rewind the tape just 1 month back. Through memory and events, these very footsteps you see before your eyes now belong to General Saddam Haftar. During an official military reception in the Turkish capital, Ankara, attended by the commander of the Turkish land forces, the Minister of Defense, and several of the country's top military generals. Everything started right here, a defining moment, at an extremely sensitive time, in which the general made a true breakthrough, piercing the wall of diplomatic silence that had remained rigid for years. Here, the images were at their clearest, revealing the features of a new phase, built on sovereignty, respect, and mutual interests between Benghazi, Libya's capital of stability and reconstruction, and Turkey, the prominent regional player on the Libyan geopolitical map. A moment that shook the rivals of the General Command, both at home and abroad. It raised concern among those ambushing him, fearing the rise of his political role. General Saddam, the most influential figure on Libya's military landscape, from the far east to the deep southwest of its desert terrain. The general's move toward the Turkish stop was the culmination of a long diplomatic journey, led with wisdom and steadiness over many months and across 4 different continents. A journey that began on the African continent with a 3-nation tour across the Sahel, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Chad. Then came 2 unannounced visits to the United States of America, one of them specifically to the state of North Carolina, where Fort Hood is located, the largest, most expansive military base belonging to the U.S. Army anywhere in the world. 2 visits to the United States included a series of high-level meetings, interrupted by a return to Libya and talks with AFRICOM generals in Benghazi. Then came a trip to Washington, followed less than 2 weeks later by a visit from President Trump's envoy for African affairs, who met with General Saddam Haftar, appearing for the first time in the heart of Libya, wearing the suit of a statesman, not his usual military uniform. A small detail, but one that completes the missing piece in the diplomatic picture of the rising military figure in politics. He headed on an official visit to the Belarusian capital, Minsk, on the 1st of March, where he took part in the graduation ceremony of a new batch of elite soldiers from the Special Forces Battalion, Saika 36, from Africa to the United States, and once again to its Cold War rival, Russia, in May 2025. Passing through the diplomatic marathon led by the general, involving multiple meetings held across key European and Arab capitals, including Italy, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Arab Republic of Egypt. In the language of numbers and maps, General Saddam Haftar's diplomatic missions, spanning from June 2024 to May 2025, included official visits to 10 different countries across 4 distinct continents: Chad, Niger, Burkina Faso, Russia, the United States, Turkey, Belarus, Italy, Egypt, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. A journey rich in meaning and symbolism. This map sums it all up. Why Saddam? This man, many, both inside and outside Libya, bet on his failure, meeting repeatedly to break his will and kill his project early. They unleashed media machines and TV channels, hired voices of discord, writers of falsehoods, and mercenaries of chaos, all to target him. They burned millions of dollars to tarnish his image, erase his presence, undermine his path, and cast doubt on his legacy. But they lost the bet, again and again, as their schemes collapsed like dominoes, falling one after the other. Saddam was the voice of balance amid the chaos, the key figure in Libya's complex equation, not because he is the son of Field Marshal Haftar, but because he succeeded in untangling Libya's 2 most difficult knots: the militia crisis and the issue of border stability, along vast and vulnerable frontiers, and the deadlock in politics, which he managed to unlock, taking control with calm precision. This allowed him to penetrate Turkey's camp in western Libya, from the heart of Ankara, not through war and conflict, but across the table of dialogue and peace. The general, who has now become, without rival, the man of the moment, more than ever before. He was reading the scene in every detail. He maneuvers with the cunning of a military commander and negotiates for Libya with the calm of a statesman, preserving regional and international balance while overseeing the stabilization of the south. And he wages war on the border's edge when necessity calls. Then he takes his seat at the table of dialogue and diplomacy when duty calls, negotiating with skill, meeting yesterday's rivals, scoring points without ever compromising the nation's higher interests. Saddam drew attention at home, abroad, and in global power capitals as the making of an exceptional leader, a statesman capable of elevating Libya to a new era of leadership and stability. At the same time, Libya's rivals and the sponsors of chaos saw him as a tightening rope, choking the life out of their cross-border schemes, creeping toward power with bribes in their briefcases. Despite all the fabricated accusations and the traps set to bring him down, to ignite discord between the general command and its support base, the response was singular: silence in the face of their noise, and projects that spoke for themselves in the language of achievement. This green expanse in the heart of the desert is just one among dozens of development, agricultural and service projects overseen by the National Development Authority, led by General Saddam and directed from behind the scenes. Massive initiatives in agriculture, healthcare, water, electricity, and in reconstruction, infrastructure, road building, and institutional development. Vast stretches of the southern and southwestern desert have been transformed into thriving hubs of achievement in Sabha, Sirte, Jufra, Ajdabiya, and beyond. Strategic projects advancing with steady steps from Sabha Airport and the stadium to the port and hospitals, through government institutions and the opening of bridges linking the long marginalized south to the heart of the country, east and west. All of this has been, and continues to be, carried out away from the spotlight, with tireless daily effort and actions that speak before words. Saddam triumphs over the storm. The media storm, funded and fabricated, that broke out just before the general's return from his unannounced visit to Washington, followed by his trip alongside the General Command to Moscow, was nothing more than a final desperate breath, an attempt to resurrect a dead Project Awak, the militiaization of Libya. A project that Al-Karama had already crushed in the East years ago. Today, the brokers of chaos and agents of dark rooms seek to revive it, to keep Libya hostage to militia violence and cling to power. They tried to shake the general and the command, but the scheme backfired. The act fooled no one. Instead of turning public sentiment and shaking the tribe's trust in the rising general and the national leadership project, awareness prevailed. The flames of sedition were extinguished, and the fireball they meant to ignite fell into a cold, empty pit. Then came the shocking surprise. Time itself seemed to stop, right there, at the far end of the scene, bearing witness to the vast difference between the national state-building project and the clashing militia agendas of power and dominance. There's a clear difference between a national army fighting to protect borders and ensure the state's stability, and mercenaries spilling blood in a scramble to divide the spoils. While General Saddam was racing against time, laying the foundations of development in the south, defining the boundaries of policy, and defending the nation's interests in both neighboring and distant countries. His rivals, meanwhile, were searching in the dark for a spark of sedition, one that ultimately ignited the fuse of their repeated delusions. The mask fell from familiar faces. Fabricated stories melted away. Fake news collapsed. The message was delivered, and everyone understood. the era of deception and systematic lies had expired, and that the rising general was never just a name in the news, but a true statesman drawing the map of a nation on the ground. Not because the media said so, but because the land itself bore witness to achievement, not paper.